meet business owners. I have with me Alexandra Sloan. Alex is the marketing director for Facebook Australia and New Zealand. Alex, a big welcome.
Thank you so much for having me, Dinesh.
Alex, great to have you join us. You know, when we met at Bizruption, that was only in February. It was at the Star. I think we had a great audience there. And who would have thought the pandemic was going to be this big?
It is truly unbelievable. And even now I find it really surreal that, our lives have changed just about overnight. And, at the same time, there's a lot of concern, especially for our friends and colleagues and families in Melbourne at the moment. But, there's also amazing stories, like with SMBs in some cases, of real resilience and adaptability. So hoping to share some of those stories with you today.
Fantastic. Really looking forward to it. I have been so excited knowing that you were coming on this Futurise, your business interview series, Alex. I know there are so many insights you have to share with us on Australian SMEs, and there's lots of research I believe Facebook have been doing.
Yeah, that's right. A couple of things that I can share today. So we have been conducting a state of small business survey globally across a number of markets, and Australia is one of those. So some really interesting trending insights over the last few months from small businesses who are active on our platforms. And then we've also got some consumer research to kind of tell the story of what's going on with Australians in terms of their digital behaviour, their shopping behaviour. So I can share some of those insights that will be relevant to small businesses as they think about how to rebuild and reaccelerate out of the pandemic.
Fantastic. Tell us about them, because I think they're going to be really valuable for our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, the first thing is that as we think about what's going on with small businesses in Australia, so we have data from May trending through to the latest cut of that. But, no surprises, many businesses have moved online to reach customers where they can't reach them in person. And what we're seeing is that for businesses who are doing this in a meaningful way, so businesses making over 25% of their sales online, they're more likely to report higher sales than this time last year, and they're also less likely to have reduced the number of employees. So there's a real correlation between this digital adoption, making more sales online, and being able to keep your staff employed and keep sales up as well.
Fantastic. That's what we want to make sure, that we retain our staff, especially in small businesses. Your staff are like your extended family. We work with over 5,000 business owners, and that's what they tell us, and to lose some of these key staff had been really difficult during this pandemic.
Absolutely.
So for businesses that have had over 25% of online sales in the previous years have essentially increased their sales.
That's what we're seeing in the study. So if over 25% of their sales are being made online, then they are also reporting higher sales than this time last year. So it's attributed to growth, but also that really important job security for their teams.
Fantastic. Is there any other pointers that you can lead us to in that research?
Absolutely. So I think when we surveyed small businesses on our platforms, obviously cash flow and slower sales are still a real concern. But encouragingly, since May, we've actually seen the percentage of small businesses on Facebook who expected cash flow to be a problem has dropped 10%. So we're seeing some improvements there. Look, 50% of small businesses are actually optimistic about the future of their business. But we want to help the other 50% feel optimistic as well. Facebook are doing everything that we can, frankly, to support small businesses now and into the future.
Fantastic. Look, that's a really good thing to know that, half of the population or the business population are still very optimistic despite everything that we've experienced. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact there have been lots of businesses who've also been able to pivot during these times and create their own successes, which is a true testimony to this Australian resilience we know. I believe you've had some experience there as well, with quite a few success stories, in fact.
Yes. So I think, in these really uncertain times, as I said, there are such incredibly inspiring stories. And I think small businesses are the epitome of that, and are actually teaching large businesses how to adapt quickly and move to where their consumers are. So, some of the consumer shifts that we've been seeing in some research that we did with Kantar is that Australians are making a special effort to support local and small businesses in this time. So 37% on average have made a special effort, and that jumps up to 44% of baby boomers when you look into the demographics. So that's a really fantastic trend. People have that top of mind as they're shopping. But I think the other bit is, how do you adapt to where people are doing their shopping? So we know, again, according to Kantar, that 1 in 3 Australians have tried a new shopping behaviour. So that might be a new brand, a new way of shopping. And of course, we've got a lot of demographics coming onto digital for the first time ever. If you think about, baby boomers and silver generations as well. So lots of consumer shifts that small businesses can take advantage of. And, there are so many wonderful examples, but I think if we go back to the employment point and keeping a team employed, one of the really interesting examples that we've seen is a company called Stage Kings, whose entire business model was all about building sets for concerts and big live conferences. So you can imagine March, that all came to a grinding halt. And just an incredible story of looking at what their strengths were, what Australians needed in that moment in time. And they went from building sets for live events to building affordable, easy to assemble work from home furniture. So they had 5,000 orders in the first 2 months. They have kept their entire staff of 50 employed. And it's just a wonderful story of, not skipping a beat, thinking through how they could move their entire business based on live onto a digital delivery of their product. And they had to rethink the product as well. So an amazing story there.
That's a really amazing story. In its true sense, you use the words adaptability and being able to, act quickly. And this is a really great example of that. Being able to keep 50 of their employees still as part of their crew. And did you say 5,000 of these?
In the first 2 months. So I don't know where they're at now. I'm a proud owner of a Stage King desk, work from home desk. But yeah, that was 5,000 orders in the first 2 months.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. And there are so many other stories like them. One of my favorites is a ceramics studio down in Melbourne, actually, who had classes in their retail store, and they sold a bit of equipment for people who are into pottery. And then what they did, obviously they weren't allowed to operate, but they started to sell clay kits online and then have online pottery tutorials on Instagram TV. So another really amazing story of just rethinking the business model and then delivering it where people were, and also tapping into this wonderful insight that people have a little bit more time on their hands and need to kind of feel a bit creative and sane in this really challenging time. So same with them. They used Instagram TV, but they sold 2,200 clay kits in the first 4 weeks. They've moved into being a digital business overnight, practically.
Absolute ingenuity. And did you say they used Instagram TV for that?
To run the workshops to teach people how to do ceramics.
Fantastic. You'd remember when you came for Bizruption, MC was Sonia Ray, and Sonia Ray ran a gym. And a gym she ran from her garage, and at the time when you came for Bizruption, she had grown her business, tripled her business in a 18-month period. Now with COVID, as you can imagine, all the gyms had to close down. But Sonia's business has increased. And in fact, in this financial year, she's expecting to double the revenue. So she took her business digital. All her classes she did are now online. And she has customers not just from the lower north shore of Sydney, but she has customers from across the country.
That's exactly it. I think, that's always been a benefit of, being able to reach people digitally, is that your customer base can be local, they can be, interstate, but they can even be global, especially when you're talking about delivery of, content or services like that, exercise, any other kind of self-improvement product. It's really exciting.
It is exciting, and there are so many opportunities for business people to really think outside the square. And I think, using some of your words, it's being adaptable. It's about taking action early, being digitized and digital. That's what businesses have to do. The the consumer need still is there. The pottery company has shown us that. Their consumers still needed to use and learn this stuff, but at the same time, they picked up on a new need. And that new need was they needed to keep themselves occupied and sane during this pandemic.
Yeah, I think so much goodwill from Australian customers. Another area that we saw was in the Kantar research, that especially for millennials, so 22% of millennials had bought a gift card from a local or small business that they intended to use down the track to support these small businesses where revenue might be dropping or they're unable to stay open. So that's a huge amount of goodwill, especially the millennial generation are expressing towards local or small businesses. And actually we launched a gift card product for businesses on Facebook and Instagram, so they could put a link into their page or profile. They could promote it through their, posts or in stories, but just a way to, ask for support and to get through an uncertain, potentially, time in terms of revenue.
Fantastic. And you were saying that there are some new tools and resources available from Facebook for business owners. Tell us about that.
We've launched something called Facebook Business Suite, which is a brand new app. So the idea is that it is a multi-platform application for business owners to basically have all of their pages, all of their profiles across our apps all in one place. So obviously it's going to save time. It's going to keep businesses up to date with messages, notifications, all of their alerts in one place. And then really importantly, those business results and insights into what's resonating with customers will be available in one place as well.
Is Business Suite a social media platform, or is it more a productivity platform?
It's a productivity app, exactly. So you download the app and then it will pull in your accounts, your business accounts, so pages and profiles. So hopefully that's a really good tool to help small businesses. We're launching it just for small businesses this year, and then next year we'll hope to roll it out to larger businesses as well.
Tell me more. Tell me all the secrets.
You may have seen that globally Facebook announced $100 million in grants for small businesses around the world, and we just opened that up to Australian businesses a few days ago. So applications are open until the 22nd of September, and there are $3 million in grants up for grabs for Australian small businesses.
Alex, what else is exciting in your world? I know there are a lot of changes that have happened on Facebook. Tell us everything.
Yeah, look, I think there's lots available now. There's lots coming around the corner. So you've got your Business Suite app launched, you've got grants. There are some Australian resources that people should know about. So we've got a Boost with Facebook group on Facebook where people can go to see online tutorials, to connect with other business owners. So highly recommend joining that group if you're an Australian small business. And there are some other features that, have been launched during this year as a result of the pandemic and changing needs for both businesses and consumers. So we launched products like business fundraising, so an ability for businesses to kind of get a bit of extra cash flow. Also ordering food features within our apps, so that if you're a food business, that's really plug and play. And then I think the other really neat things have been the launch of things like the support small business stickers. So you have a way to express your support and promote your favorite local businesses through our tools as well. So lots of really cool things to try and help, drive visibility, discoverability and shoppability for small businesses. And I think on the point of shoppability, what's really exciting and just around the corner for Australian businesses and already live in New Zealand is a product called Facebook and Instagram Shops. The idea being all around social commerce and the fact that customers are more and more willing to make a purchase right within their feeds. So if you think about shops as a way for small businesses and large businesses, frankly, to have a digital storefront that has the checkout in there as well, that's what we're talking about. So it can, have integration into third-party commerce platforms like Shopify, but the idea being that people can discover, browse a brand or a product or a service and then purchase it in the social experience is just around the corner for us.
Fantastic. And hopefully it'll be easy for people to use, and, mom and dad business owners can, have their shop front right through Facebook.
Exactly.
That's pretty exciting. Business owners, as you know, have had to reinvent themselves during this pandemic. How important do you think that they must do this? And what are your views on reinvention during these times, Alex?
It's such a good question. I think there's no need to reinvent for the sake of reinventing. I think if you're in an industry that doesn't need to disrupt itself, then, stay the course. I think that the key is, as always, is staying as close to your customer, regardless of the type of business that you're running, and understanding what they need and making sure you're evolving to meet their changing needs. I think that's the point, though, is that, industries who have been disrupted, like travel, and I can come back to an example there, they've been forced to change and adapt and think about new ways of driving revenue or engagement or any of those things. And then other businesses have just had to, tweak things or think about, the fact, as I said before, that people are buying online now. This idea of contactless is so important now. People want to have safe shopping experiences. That wasn't a factor, in February when we last saw each other. So I think it's really about, what kind of external factors do you need to be considering in order to be the safest, the most appealing, the most relevant, the most useful product or service for your customers. But back to a travel example, another really great example that we've seen of a business who really had very few options in terms of how they could operate is an Indigenous tourism business called Welcome to Country. So their whole idea was that they worked with Indigenous operators all over the country and gave people a way to have an Indigenous experience when they were traveling. Of course, travel comes to a grinding halt. And what they did was they actually thought about a way to create an Indigenous marketplace. So not only could you go online and have a cultural experience online, but you could also buy merchandise or artwork, or it's just incredible. So in 4 hours, the first online experience was sold out after a Facebook post.
Wow.
So people want to escape. They want to have these experiences. But that's just such a wonderful story of thinking about how they could, keep all of those operators employed. And I believe they actually onboarded 12 new operators during the COVID shutdown or the lockdown. So there's growth where you just have to find it. And I think that's just such a neat example of delivering something in a very new way.
Again, that's amazing. It's again looking at how consumer needs have changed and really understanding and tapping into that and to create growth in times like this.
Exactly.
That is unbelievable.
It is really amazing.
I'd like to ask a more personal question. I hope that is okay, Alex. I know you're a mom, you're a working mom, and you're a very busy lady. How are you managing during this pandemic, from working from home and looking after children?
Yeah, depends what day you ask me. If you'd asked me during the homeschooling period, and again, like absolute hats off to all the parents in Melbourne who are still going through that. But that was a particularly challenging time for most parents, I would say, working parents who had to juggle a job. Your living room became your office, but also a creche and a primary school. And then, your partner's there. So there's a lot going on. And that was a lot of pressure. And so I think I'm very grateful that my employer is very understanding and offered incredible amounts of flexibility, but also empathy. So even, in my role as a manager at Facebook, it's been so important to understand at an individual level where everyone in my team is at. And it doesn't matter if they're a parent or they're living alone, and in isolation, or they're in a share house and they can't get a quiet place to work. Everyone has some kind of challenge, and really digging into how people are doing, which changes on a dime. As we all know, this has been an absolute roller coaster of a year, has been priority number one. And so, that's been my focus as a manager, and I've certainly felt that as an employee as well. So incredibly grateful for that.
Congratulations. I'm having to juggle between homeschooling and then a really busy workload. I know how busy you were before all this started.
Yeah.
And also, as you say, as a manager, you have to have so much empathy in working with and working through the challenges we all have to carry. Congratulations for doing that. You are a great role model for any woman.
That is really kind, but I don't want anyone to think that I've got it all figured out. In fact, I joined a discussion with a few other women from completely different industries earlier this week, and I was frantically scribbling down all of their kind of tips for how to manage the fact that work and home have just become one thing, and how do you switch off, and how do you, and a lot of the themes that we talked about were, the fact that, there's creep in your hours because you don't have the commute and you end up working longer hours, or the fact that, there's just meeting overload. So you're just in front of a screen more than ever before. And so there were some really nice hacks that I wrote down. One of them was, offering your team zero guilt timeout. So if you need to watch a movie for 2 hours in the middle of the day, or if you need to go and do a yoga class, or if you need to, whatever it is, you have to take those breaks out to recharge, because I think we all thought we were going to be at home for a few months, maybe, and we've all realized this is a much longer marathon. So we have to get mentally fit, physically fit, and we have to treat it like a marathon, not a sprint, because I think this has all taken us by surprise how extended this uncertainty has been going on for. And I read a really interesting article actually about humans' ability to react in times of crisis, and it was all about this capacity that we have as humans called surge capacity, which is, in a natural disaster, your body has kind of adaptive systems to cope with short periods of crisis. Whereas this is not that. It's an extended period of uncertainty, and we're not kind of wired for that. And so it talked about, the antidote to why we might be feeling depleted or anxious, or is really about building those resilience building blocks back up. So thinking about our health, lots of sleep, mental timeout, connecting with family and friends, all of those things that we know build resilience, so that, each day you've got enough kind of in the tank to cope with ongoing ambiguity.
Alex, some really wise words there. You really spoke to a lot of us as you mentioned that, keeping not just our mental fitness, but also our physical fitness is so important during these times. To connect with family and take time out is so crucial, isn't it? Because as you correctly said, there is a time creep, because we forget what time it is, and we're trying to manage all our workloads. And I think I am guilty of that too. And that word you used, guilt free. I think we all need to learn that a bit more, so that as we are productive, we can also take some time out. And I think that getting that balance is what's important, so that then you are able to deliver upon expectations to your employers or employees or work colleagues, whoever you work with, and your customers, of course, but also still remain sane, which is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, on the point of connectedness with others, I think, again, there are states still in lockdown, but, I think one silver lining from this year so far for me has been actually the focus on connecting with the people that matter. I think, when we were in lockdown, I couldn't see my parents, of course, and neither could my kids. And they lived just down the road, but we would have video calls with them almost every night and just eat dinner together. And so I do get inspired by these stories of how, despite being physically distant, we've all found ways to feel connected. I think the Zoom, trivia quiz nights have dropped off a bit, but I did love that, back when that was the challenge, was we couldn't physically be with each other, that we all made an effort, whether it was through, WhatsApp video, Messenger video. I've got a Facebook portal, that became critically important, which is just kind of heartwarming.
Thank you, Alex. Great having you join us. You've spoken about what Facebook and social media and Instagram can help our businesses with. You've shared lots of insights with us, but more importantly, you've shared a personal side, and no doubt a lot of us have a few things to think about in managing our lifestyles there. And you said, I don't think I have got it all sorted. I don't think any one of us have our stuff fully sorted, but it is all this quest of making sure that we can be the best we can be, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic having you. Maybe we can connect via our Facebook portals. Guys, for those who don't know what a Facebook portal is, Google it. It's a great device. It uses, is it virtual reality it uses?
It has it has AR filters that you can use over the top of it, but it's basically powered through Messenger and WhatsApp.
Absolutely.
To do video conferencing.
There you go. You heard of another device. If you haven't heard of the Facebook portal, try to Google that up. Maybe order one. It's a great device. I have one. My family uses it to talk to all our friends and family overseas, and it brings the world a bit more closer. Thank you, Alex. Great to have you join us.
Thank you, Dinesh.
We want to have you at our webinars as well, so that our audience gets to know you a lot more.
Thank you so much. Talk to you next time.